everyone. I'm Linda Reed-Enever, founder of Business, and excited to have you back here for a Business Skills webinar. We are being joined by a member who's been with us for a while. Her name is Tara Whitney, and Tara is the founder of Whitney Consulting. Now, what Tara doesn't know about grants is most probably not necessary in the world of things out there. She's been a grants assessor. She's done some amazing work along the way, and she is fantastic when it comes to promoting knowing what you need to do to get a grant along the way. Now, I have been working with Tara on her course, and I can tell you it's a pretty amazing course that she has put together. But Tara's here to share tips with you on how to get that grant. And for those of you who've been watching the news, watching the trending stuff out there, there is lots of information about grants out there. Yesterday, you only have to go to the Today Show. There was a big list of grants, or go to business.gov.au. And Tara, I think, it also has a grant list as well that you can tap into to have a look at the grants that are available. So Tara, welcome to our skills webinar today.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So you're here to share with us some tips and some insights on grants today.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. We've got a few people popping up. Helen says she's looking forward to today's one. Ian and Silver are starting a tourist accommodation business and tours in South Australia, so that's good. As I said, guys, keep letting us know in chat along the way about where you are and what you're going to do. We'd like to get to know you throughout this process, and feel free to pop social links in or where we can connect with you along the way. Tara, I'm going to hand over to you now. If you're ready to start with your presentation, I'll watch us in the live stream, and if we have any questions, I'll pop up. Do you want them at the end or do you want them during?
Either way. So if you think it's a question related to that particular point and you want to yell at me at that point, I'm happy to take questions on the way, but otherwise we can grab them at the end if there's anything that we've missed.
Beautiful, fantastic. Great, we've got a few hellos on Facebook as well, so let's jump in.
All right, I will get started. Thank you. Okay, so let me just start this so we can get started. Can everyone see that? All good?
Yep, we can see your screen. We're all good.
Excellent. So as we said, we're talking about grant writing and how to get grants today. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to ask. My name is Tara Whitney. I am the founder of Whitney Consulting. We write grants, tenders and business cases. And this is Whitney Consulting, a picture of the three of us at the moment. We are all past grants assessors. So we have a background assessing grant applications and business cases. So we know what assessors are looking for. We know what you need to put in your application for it to be successful. In the past 4 years since I started Whitney Consulting, we've achieved over $40 million worth of grant funding for our clients. We are based in WA, in both regional WA and in Perth, but we have done many federal, mostly federal, grant applications and also some in other states as well. So what we'll talk about today is going to be grants, just generally what they are and what they're for and what you need to understand about them. We'll go through the grant guidelines, which every grant has, and the grant writing approach. So every grant is different in terms of what they ask you to fill out, how they ask it, the size and the complexity of the grant application. So every grant is different, but the grant writing approach is the same. So it doesn't matter whether you're going for $5,000 or $500,000 or $500 million. The grant writing approach is the same in order for you to successfully get grants. So what is a grant? A grant is for a specific project. So your project must have a beginning, an end, and it must have outcomes or benefits. These benefits or the outcomes of your project is what the grant is paying for. So grants are given by funding bodies and they are paying for the benefits of your project. They're not just giving away the money for no reason. There is a reason behind it. They are giving away the money to pay for the benefits. So essentially they're an investor in your project and they're paying for the benefits or the outcomes of your project. So you must remember that when you are thinking about whether or not to apply for a grant and which grant might be right for you. Your project must have outcomes or benefits that somebody is willing to pay for, and who would be willing to pay for them. So think about that. Also, funding bodies are generally governments, but not always. So often the funding body will be local, state or federal governments. Now, when they are a government, you can be assured that you understand why they're giving away the money. So for example, if your your Department of Sport, if they say that they are providing a grant program to increase participation in sport, then you understand, well, that is the remit of state government. They are the Department of Sport. So obviously they are paying to increase participation in sport if they say that's what the grant program is for. However, if the grant program to increase participation in sport is being provided by, say, Bendigo Bank or Bank West or some other organisation that's not a government, then yes, your grant application needs to show how you're going to increase participation in sport, because that is what they say they are paying for. However, why is a bank giving away money? Their remit is not sport. They are giving away money because they want you to like them. They are looking for good PR. So if it's a bank or a mining company or some sort of an organisation like that that's giving away grants, keep that in mind. They're not going to say that. They're not going to say, oh, we're giving away money because we know you hate us, so please like us if we give you this money. That's not what they're going to say. They're going to say, oh, we're giving it away to increase participation in sport, or we're giving the money away to community enhancement. But in the back, their reason is PR. So even if they don't ask for it, give them what they need. Give them the PR. So talk to them about the fact, this is how we're going to do. We're going to do this amazing sports program with kids. Oh, and by the way, we're going to invite you for a photo shoot, and we're going to put it on our Facebook page and in our newsletter, and you guys can all be seen with all these kids playing sport, and there's the bank manager. Tell them that even if they don't ask for it, because that is going to give them what they are paying for. Now, the next thing about grants is they can be really difficult to find. There is something like, now the number changes each year, but there's something like $1.8 billion worth of grants available a year in Australia. So they shouldn't be hard to find, but they can be, because they are in all different places. They're not all provided by government, so they can be difficult to find. So just quickly run through how to find grant programs, because you do not want to find out about a perfect grant for your project the day before or the day after it closes. So be proactive. To do that, you need to get on a bunch of lists so that they are emailing you the grant information and you don't have to go searching for it. One of those is obviously, I'm going to mention it, is professional grant writing companies. So at Whitney Consulting, we have a newsletter that comes out once a month, which says, here are all the grants that are open and here are all the grants that are coming up. And that's a free newsletter that goes straight to your email. So sign up, you can sign up for that, and other grant writing companies may do the same thing. Then the other place that you can sign up to is your local organisation mailing list or your sector organisation mailing list. Now, what that means is if you are in a particular location, so if you're in regional South Australia or in the wheat belt, which is where some of my staff are, in the wheat belt region of WA, you can sign up for mailing lists that are specific to that location. So there is the Wheat Belt Development Commission. There is the Regional Development Australia Wheat Belt. They have mailing lists that say, here are all the grants that are suitable for our region, our area. On top of that, your sector organisation mailing list. So if your project, all grants are in themes, so it could be sport, or it could be arts, or it could be economic development. Whatever that is, yours is obviously more likely to be along there, as a business, is more likely to be economic development. It could be tourism, could be jobs creation, that sort of thing. Sign up to the sectors that are relevant. So if you are a tourism business, then sign up to your version of Tourism WA and Tourism Australia. They may have a mailing list that they send out, which talks about all the tourism grants that are available. There are businesses, so Small Business Development Corp, those sorts of business organisations. Sign up to them, as they will have a mailing list which will tell you what grants and funding would be available for you. The next thing is social media. So social media is huge for grants, especially because with these mailing lists, they may come out once a month, but grants could come out and close within a 2 or 3 week period sometimes. So definitely be all over social media. Go and like the pages of the grant writing companies, of the sector organisations and the local organisations. Go and like the social media pages of all the departments that are relevant to your business. So if it's, as I said, tourism, liking those tourism departments. And any organisations that you know of that provide grants, like Bendigo Bank, Bankwest, like FRRR, which is Foundation for Regional Renewal, if you're in the regional areas, those sorts of grant funding bodies, go and like all of their social media pages so you get notified. Now, last but not least is government websites. Federal government is really good. Now, they provide a one-stop shop. So that is grants.gov.au. So grants.gov.au, grants.gov.au, and it's called Grant Connect. Grant Connect is fabulous because you can go in and set up your profile. You can put in your keywords, that your location, all of that, and they will then send you an email every time a grant matches that profile. So federal government is great. State government varies depending on the states. They generally aren't as good as government, but some may be. So go and have a look at the department that you are specifically looking for. So in Australia, in WA, it would be Tourism WA, and the Small Business Development Corp would be some good ones for a tourism business, for example. So go to those websites and see whether or not they have a mailing list, or they have something that you can sign up to, or if there's a general state government one that there is. There isn't one in WA. They haven't done that very well because the state governments don't like talking to each other. But your states might actually talk to each other a little bit better. I'm not sure. And then local governments, really, because they are so local, it is simply a matter of signing up to their newsletter or their website, going and checking on them. So that is about where to find grants. The next thing we'll go through is grant guidelines. So every grant program should have a set of guidelines. These guidelines will talk you through everything you need to know about that grant program. Now, they could be a 10-page document, or they could just be a one-page web page that talks about it, but they will all have guidelines to tell you about the grant program. Those guidelines will contain the eligibility criteria, which is are you or are you not eligible for that grant? Now, eligibility criteria is based on 3 things. The first is your organisation type. So many grants won't be suitable for businesses. They'll only be for not-for-profits, for example. So your organisation type depends on whether or not you're eligible. The second part of eligibility is your project. So what exactly is your project? And that means, what are the benefits or the outcomes going to be? Are they related to the grant program? So you cannot obviously apply for grant funding for a program that is about increasing participation in sport if your project is a tourism business that's going to bring in tourists. That's not aligned. Your project outcomes are not the same as what they're wanting to pay for. And the third is location. Are you based in a location that is eligible? Some are state-based, some are only for a local government area, so you must be in the right location. The guidelines will talk about the eligibility, which obviously you must check before you decide to go any further, because it's a yes or no. If you're not eligible, don't bother. The second thing it will cover is what's called assessment or selection criteria. Now, these are the things that are scored. So these are the questions that get a score somehow. Now, every grant application is scored different, grant program is scored differently, but the assessment or selection criteria are the ones that are scored. So you must answer them very well to get a score. You can't not answer one question or not do it well, because you'll get a 0, and you must answer the question. So you may think that you're telling an assessor what they want to hear, but if you haven't answered the question, they cannot score you highly for that particular question. So you must answer the question that is asked. When you are answering selection or assessment criteria, please remember it's almost the same as a job interview. You're always told when you're doing a job interview, do not use motherhood statements. Don't say, I am wonderful, I am a great communicator, because everyone is going to say that. It adds no value. There is nothing being demonstrated there. You must evidence this. You can't just say, we are a wonderful organisation. You must say, our organisation has previously managed projects of a similar size and nature. For example, we managed this particular project in 2017. This is how much it cost. These were the outcomes. That demonstrates to me as an assessor that you are a capable organisation. Whereas if you have just said, we are a capable organisation, you've got nothing backing that up. So it is the same as a job application or a job interview. And people use acronyms SAO, which is situation, action, outcome, setting the scene, actually giving the example. This was the situation. This is what we did. This was the outcome. So you must either attach evidence if you're allowed in that particular application. You can attach evidence. For example, if you claim in your assessment criteria, you claim that you have the support of the local shire, then you really should attach a letter of support from the local shire to evidence that claim. So you make sure your selection criteria are answered in a SAO way, in a way to demonstrate and to evidence your claims, and not in a motherhood statement type of a way. The other thing that the guidelines will talk to you about will be the objectives of the grant funding body or the grant program. So as I said, grant programs all have objectives, things they're trying to achieve. There's a reason they're giving away the money. You need to nail that. If your project is not going to give them what they're paying for, they're not going to pay you for it. So you need to make sure your whole application is focused on how can I demonstrate to them that my project is going to give them what they're paying for. So those objectives are very important. Now, when we write grant applications at Whitney Consulting, we go through the guidelines and we highlight all the key points before we start writing. Key points being these objectives, the intended outcomes of the grant program. What are they? They get highlighted. When we are writing our grant application, we repeat their wording back to them. So if they have said the intended outcome of this project is to increase participation in sport, then my wording in my grant application will be, this project will increase participation in sport by doing whatever it's doing. So repeat their wording back to them, because it is very important that you nail their objectives. Some of the other things in the guidelines that I like to highlight are, they'll talk about ineligible expenditure. So there may be some items that it's not eligible. So I will highlight that. I will also highlight if they might say what you can and can't attach. They might talk about the file sizes. So you can attach file sizes only up to 2 megabytes, and they must be in this sort of a file type. All of that information gets highlighted. Anything they say you must do, I highlight. Now, a great example of this is a recent grant program where they said in the guidelines, you must attach a COVID safe plan. Nowhere in the grant application did it say, please attach a COVID safe plan or attach your COVID safe plan here. Nowhere did it say that. So if you had not read the grant guidelines and remembered and highlighted and remembered that I need to attach a COVID safe plan, you would have ended up being ineligible. And all you would have done would have been, well, I just followed the application. I filled out the application. Everything it asked, I did. Yep, but you didn't attach a COVID safe plan, which was said in the guidelines that you must do. So go through the guidelines, highlight everything it says you must do. When you finish drafting, go back to the guidelines, make sure everything you have highlighted, you have included in your application. And make sure that that ineligible budget, you haven't included any of those things in your budget and said that the grant's going to pay for it. Linda, did you have a question?
No. I was just, look, it's the hidden things that happen in marketing. It's like the hidden things. These guys, and we talk about this all the time. We talk about the hidden stuff. It's the hidden stuff in Facebook. It's the hidden stuff in all of those areas. That you've got to make sure that you do read those guidelines. You do look at those criteria. And I've had business that has come to Clive and I afterwards, I didn't get this grant. I wanted to apply for the grant. I've looked on the same situation as Tara. I've looked at the application. And I've said, you haven't followed the guidelines. You were ruled out from this point here. You just didn't qualify.
Yes.
And it's really sad to see.
It's a lot of effort. Writing a grant application takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. Yeah. So you want to make sure you are eligible and you do it properly, definitely. So guidelines, first thing I read and highlight, and it's also the last thing I read and double check before I click submit. So the grant writing approach. Now, as I said, every grant is different. So this is a general, as Linda was saying, this is a general advice, but each grant is asking for the same things. There's a general approach that you can go for. The first, the two key areas that you must address in any grant application, and I've already touched on it. Firstly, you need to show how you'll give the funding body what they're paying for. They are paying for the benefits of your project. Those benefits of the project must be meeting the intended outcomes of the grant program. Show them how you're going to give them what they are paying for. The second area you need to address is you need to prove you're not going to waste their money. So you may have an amazing project that is absolutely, definitely going to have the outcomes that meet their intended outcomes or the objectives of the grant program. But if you are an organisation that's not capable of delivering that project and not getting it to the end, then you're going to waste their money. Or if you're saying you're going to deliver this amazing project, which is clearly going to cost at least $500,000, and your budget says you're going to do it for $100,000, you're just going to waste their money. They're going to give you the $100,000. You're going to get part of the way through and realize you can't finish the project. So you're going to blow their money. So they're the two areas you need to address. So it's all about your project and how it's going to give them what they pay for. And then it's about proving that you're capable, you're able, and everything you have said is reasonable and viable, and you're going to deliver the project successfully. The way we address these key areas is by what I've come up with as 6 key project questions. The project questions are why, what, how, when, viability, and cost. Now, I'll just quickly go through that because I am conscious of there's not a lot of time. I could talk about this for probably 3 days, but I won't. So the first question is the why. Now, this is very important because this goes to the need for your project. If your project is not needed, you will not get the money. So if you are proposing to start a tourist accommodation project and there are 10 other tourist accommodation facilities in your area and they are not at max capacity ever, then your project is not needed. So you are not going to get the money. Because if they give you money to build a new tourist accommodation project, it's not going to bring any new tourists in because they've already got room to stay. There's not an issue. There's no need. So the why for your project is about why is your project needed? What benefits is it going to deliver? And what is the demand for this project? You need to demonstrate that in your application. In many smaller applications, they may not specifically ask. They may not say, what is the demand for your project? What is the need for your project? They may just say, describe your project. Now, you obviously do. That's clearly the what. You do need to describe your project and say what you are going to do, but you also need to set the scene. Because if we can't understand why your project's needed, you're not going to get the money. So if it just says describe your project, you need to set the scene. You need to say, in this particular location, this particular town, there's no tourist accommodation, or there's tourist accommodation for high end or for backpackers, but there's nothing in the medium range. And set that scene, show. But we have this many tourists coming. During peak season, all of the accommodation is completely full and there's nowhere for people to stay, and we lose tourists for that reason. Then talk about the amount of money that tourists bring in and the benefits that they bring in to your town. And then you've started to show the demand for your project. And then say, this project will address this issue. It will address this problem of lack of accommodation by creating new accommodation for the medium type target market. So your why is about why your project is needed. You need to demonstrate that. You need to evidence it. You need to explain it. So set the scene. So to give you an example, which I use quite often, I was assessing a application for let's just say an indoor netball stadium. Now, they had demonstrated to me why they needed a new netball court. It was very clear. They had all of these netball clubs. The existing court was completely dangerous. You couldn't possibly play netball on it. So they had demonstrated that they definitely needed a new netball court. What they hadn't done is explain to me why it had to be an indoor netball court, because that obviously costs a whole lot more money than an outdoor netball court would. I mean, we're talking millions more than an outdoor netball court. You can put down an outdoor netball court quite quickly. But they'd asked for funding for an indoor netball court and they hadn't explained why. The reason why, when I asked them, was it gets to 55 degrees in summer here. We would not legally be allowed to use the netball court for schools during the day. We would only ever be able to use an outdoor netball court at night time, and we don't have any lights in that area. So this netball court, if it was outdoors, would never, ever, ever get used for the entire of summer. Even in winter, it's still hot here. But I didn't know that because I am an assessor. I know my grant program. I don't know your town. I don't know your problems. You need to explain them to me. You need to set the scene. So obviously, as soon as they told me that it was completely ridiculous to not have an indoor court, that made sense. And as an assessor, I could understand it. I could see the need. I could see the why for the project, and I could give them the money. But you've got to set the scene. So every project is addressing some kind of a problem. So you've got to explain, what is that problem? What is the need? Okay, so that's the why. It's very, very important. You really need to brainstorm it. You need to go through, because your project will have more whys than you realize. You need to brainstorm it. Yeah, you need to brainstorm it by thinking about what is the problem this project will fix and what are the benefits of it. And you will start to realize that there are far more facets to it than you had before. And as you do that, you open yourselves up for different grant programs, because you may have thought that your project was simply a sports project. But as you start to go into the benefits of it, you go, well, the benefits of sport, mental health, physical health. All of a sudden, you've opened up mental health grant programs. So there's all these different reasons why you need to brainstorm the why, because it is really important to your grant application. The next question is the what. So obviously the what is specifically, what are you doing? Now, the issue with this is people often are selling their project so much that they forget to explain exactly what they will do. So as an assessor, you often are struggling to understand what they're going to do. So exactly what are they doing? Okay, I kind of vaguely get that they're building tourist accommodation, but I don't know how many rooms, how many beds, how many people can sleep in it, where they're building it, what kind of accommodation it's going to be. I don't understand exactly what they are doing. So you must explain, we are going to build a X number of bed accommodation on this site. It's going to be, and if there's any specific building parts of it that you need to know about, what exactly is it? And then you need to go into the how. So how are you going to do that? So are you going to engage a qualified builder, or are you just going to knock up some bricks yourself? You need to actually explain very clearly how you will do it. The how has a few facets. So one of them is that it's procurement. So how are you going to procure any of the services that you need? Are you going to engage a builder? If you are going to do that, are you going to go to open tender, or are you going to get 3 written quotes? Or are you just going to use your neighbour, Bob, and you're going to give him $100,000 more than it's actually worth, but you're just not going to tell anyone? Because that's a problem. And that's something that an assessor is going to see through. An assessor wants to know that you are going to procure things open, transparent, and value for money. You're not going to waste their money. So how are you going to ensure value for money? Are you going to go to open tender, or at least get 3 written quotes for any items over $20,000 or something like that? Tell them so that they can understand how you are going to procure your items.
Some grants require that too, Tara, don't they? They require, they actually require that process.
Yeah, some do. Some don't say anything about it at all, but all of them would like to know.
Yeah.
So even if they don't ask you, they would like to know.
Guys, remember the little things, because Tara's just talking about accommodation and the building side of things. If you go wheelchair accessible, if you go, allergy friendly, whatever you happen to do in your build or sustainable building, that's going to open up a whole lot of grants too. So you need to really, what Tara was saying before, do that feature and benefits analysis, because it's going to open up more.
Yes, absolutely.
Grants,
it's going to open up more grants. It's also going to make your grant application stronger, because if you can show this unique part of your accommodation, it's going to make them understand how you're going to attract more people to you. So it's definitely something you need to do. The other parts of how, and as well as procurement, is also how will you manage the project? So will it be managed by a project manager? How are they going to do it? Are they going to stage it? And this project manager, what is their experience? You need to demonstrate that they are capable. So don't just say that Bobby Joe, the owner, is going to project manage it. Tell me their experience in managing projects. They have previously managed projects of this size. Give me the example. Tell me their experience. They have been a CEO of this such and such a thing for so long. Show me that they are capable of managing a project like this. Then tell me about the governance. So you have a project manager, but who is overseeing them? Do you have a board or a committee? Is there some sort of a working group? Explain to me what the governance is. If it's just one owner, then who's checking up on them? Perhaps they can be reporting to their accountant or something, because if you have one person managing the project and no one overseeing them and checking, then how can the assessor be certain you're going to deliver this project to time, to budget, and to scope? Because it's all in the hands of one person and there's no one overseeing them. There's no governance. So you need to explain that. How often will this project manager report to somebody? Who will they report to? In what format will they report? So that you can make sure the project is delivered successfully. So that's your how. The next is when. Now, obviously, when is fairly self-explanatory. They will always ask you for milestones or timeframes within your grant application. Just know that your milestones, they should be specific dates. So they shouldn't just be, oh, it's going to take 1 month to do this. You should put 30th of June, 2021. So often I will use my first milestone as funding approval date, because that way, then all the other dates, the assessor understands, well, if we don't give funding approval till 2 months later, then all the other dates get pushed back by at least 2 months. So I usually say funding approval, 30th of June, 2021. And then my next milestone date is also a specific date, an actual, date. The other thing is your milestone should also be specific activities, because if you say something like landscaping, 30th of June, 2021, I don't know whether that means you're starting the landscaping or you're finishing it by that date. So these milestones should be commence such and such a specific date, complete such and such specific date, so that the assessor understands how long these things are going to take and they can assess it and go, is that a reasonable time frame for this project to be delivered? Will this project be successfully delivered? The next question is viability. Now, viability is a bit of a catch-all because everything is about the viability of the project, isn't it? But this question is just to catch a couple of things that aren't really in any of the other ones. One of the parts of viability is stakeholder engagement. So there will be people that you need to deliver your project successfully. You must have spoken to them. They must be on board. Otherwise, your project is not viable. If you need Shire approval, then they need to be on board or your project may not be viable. If you're getting funding from somewhere else, so another company or somebody else is giving any funding to match the grant funding, you need that funding for this project to be viable. So you must evidence that. Evidence it by a letter of commitment, not just a letter of support which says, yeah, we support the project. It has to actually say, we will provide $50,000 to this project. It's a letter of commitment of whatever it is that you need to get the project done. So stakeholders are a key part of viability. The other part is you need the people who are going to use the project. So your project is being completed for the benefits. They're paying you for the outcomes. So if people aren't going to use your project, then the outcomes will not be delivered, will they? So I can build a playground and that's fabulous. I'm building a playground, but I'm not building it so that there's a pretty playground that I can look at. We're building it to deliver the outcomes of the kids getting physical activity, mental health, getting out there. If no one uses that playground, it has not achieved its outcomes. So stakeholders in this case are also the users. They are the kids, the local play group, the local parents group. They are also stakeholders for that project. So your stakeholders are twofold. Who do you need to get the project done and who will benefit or use the project? All of these stakeholders are the ones that you should be getting letters of support from. Quick comment on letters of support, and I know I'm running out of time. Quick comment on letters of support is do not provide letters of support that are templated and all say the same thing, because the assessor will throw them in the bin and ignore them completely. Your letters of support need to be specific to whoever has written it. So they need to specifically say, I am giving whatever it is I'm giving to this project, or I will use this project, or they need to be evidencing the need. Say this project is desperately needed because this is the issue. So yeah, we support this project because we can see how much it's needed. They should be very individual letters of support. The other thing about viability is the risk analysis. So risk management, obviously there are free risk management matrices if you need them, or the application may actually ask for it. Risk is always the same. It's about the possibility of it happening. And if it does happen, what is the severity, the impact going to be? And you need to mitigate that risk, which means you need to minimize the chance of it happening, or you need to minimize the impact, the severity if it does happen. Don't forget, when you are doing your risk analysis in your grant application, they're paying for the benefits. So talking about all these risks in actually creating the playground, weather and all these things might happen when I'm creating the playground, and then no risks to the actual use of the playground is not ideal. You've got to talk about the risks to achieving the benefits. So what are the risks to not achieving the outcomes that they're paying for? One of the risks is nobody uses the playground. How are you going to mitigate that? So don't forget about, once the project is done, the actual use of it. The other part of viability is sustainability. So if you are delivering something that needs ongoing funding, then you need to explain how that is going to be covered. Generally with a business, the ongoing funding is because you are getting revenue in. And so your viability, sustainability thing should be a financial projection, which says, if we do this project, this is our estimated revenue and our estimated expenditure once we've done the project. And that will show that the revenue is going to cover the expenditure. And the last thing is cost, which is obviously your budget. Quick things about the budget: make sure it adds up. Very, 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 very rarely does it add up, which is shocking, but true. I don't know why. Just make sure your budget adds up. Don't forget to go back and check the ineligible expenditure and make sure you haven't asked the grant to fund anything that is ineligible. Often, or most often with grants, it's match funding or leverage funding. So you need to provide a certain percentage of the funding yourself. So if there are any ineligible expenditure items that you still need to buy through your project, use your funding for it, not the grant program funding for it. Make sure you've done that. Quickly, in-kind versus cash. Grant programs may say you need to provide a certain amount of funding, and they may say it has to all be cash, or some of it could be in kind. The difference between in kind and cash: one, there's two questions to ask yourself to determine whether it's cash contribution or an in kind contribution. Is it coming out of my bank account? And would I spend this money if I wasn't doing the project? If the answer is yes, it's coming out of my bank account, but no, but I would have spent the money anyway, it's in kind. So my example there is a staff member. If you have a staff member who is employed 2 days a week on a permanent basis and you put them towards the project, that 2 days a week of their pay is not cash contribution. It's an in-kind contribution because you were paying them 2 days a week anyway. You had to keep paying them. They're a permanent employee. So that's an in-kind contribution because you were going to spend that money even if you weren't doing the project. If, however, you increase that employee's time, so she's now doing 4 days or he's now doing 4 days a week, so he's still doing his 2 days normally, but you've added 2 days a week for the project specifically and only for the project period, then that 2 days worth of salary is a cash contribution because you are spending money you would not have spent if you didn't do the project. So that's how you determine whether it's cash or in kind. Now that was an absolutely ridiculous run through very, very quickly. But yes, I was trying to get through as much as I could. So I'm sorry if that was an overload of information. Now, getting grant funding. As I said, there are millions of dollars available in grants each year. We ourselves, as one grant writing company, have averaged over $10 million a year for just our clients. So you can imagine how much money is out there available. What you need to know is how to get them. So there are some options for you. One of those is obviously doing a grant writing workshop, which would be like what we've just done, but in much more detail. That is great. It gives you a lot of skills, obviously, and upskills you. The other is paying a grant writer. So we exist. You can pay a grant writer to either write your full application or you can pay them to review it. So do an assessment of it. So you write your application, send it to the grant writer, they review it and give you feedback to enhance it. So there are a couple of options as well. However, if you're going to be writing grants and you want to upskill yourself and really develop professionally as a grant writer, then I have developed what I call at the moment, what I call Get That Grant mentoring program, but I am changing the name, so just be aware of that. It's a mentoring program because what I have noticed is that a lot of people do the grant writing course, but then they go back to write the application and they struggle with something, with one question, or they just want a bit of help, or they just need a bit more confidence. They just want to talk it through. They're not really quite there. They're almost there, but not quite. So they just need to be supported. And I've had that a lot, those comments a lot. So I've created this mentoring program, which includes an online grant writing course. So it has got 16 modules, videos. It's on Thinkific because Linda helped me with it. So it's videos of me talking through each of those grant writing questions, going through in detail. There's also worksheets and templates to help you. So the whole idea of the course is by the end of the course, you've written your grant application. And you can then do that course as many times as you want. You can rewatch the videos. It's a 12-month membership. It's got an example grant application in there, so you can actually see a quality grant application and what it includes, and I talk through that with you. We also then have the ongoing support. So there's two factors there. There's a private Facebook group that you can pop in and just say, I don't understand this question, or can someone help me with this? A peer may have done that exact grant, and so they come back and say, this is how you do it. Or it'll be myself or one of my staff members will be lurking in that Facebook group and we'll help you out. The other thing is a monthly group coaching calls with me. So on Zoom, you jump on a group coaching call and say, this is my project, this is the grant application, this is how I'm pitching it. I'm not sure whether it's right, or this is the question I'm struggling with. Can we talk through it, and can you tell me what I should say in this question? And you get that support. It's a self-funding program, just one small grant, and you're going to pay for your whole 12-month membership. There is a link, I think that
I popped it in the chat a couple of times, guys. There's a link for the course.
So that is something that if you are going to write a couple of grants, you want to do it yourself, it will certainly give you the best chance of writing a really quality grant application. Any questions?
I will wait. We'll wait and see. If anyone's got any questions, please pop them into the chat. I'm watching both the Facebook and here, so we'll hopefully grab them both. Guys, the one thing that I will say to you about this grant program, and I've worked with Tara on her branding and her course creation now, so it's been quite a little bit of a program along the way. The knowledge that Tara has, if you are looking to apply for a grant, if you're looking at getting your information, as Tara said, it's a self-funding program. You win one grant, you make, you get your feedback. But the opportunity for you to talk to her, and I know how much her hourly rate is in a group call session to run through that process. So have a look at it from those opportunities to have that insider situation. Now, I know at the moment there's a couple of $5,000, $2,000, $3,000 grants out there. There's a couple of $10,000 and $15,000 grants in the accommodation and tourism sector out there for business owners. If you win that grant, and you've got Tara's help and support along the way, then that is amazing for you to be able to have that process. To be able to go in and ask a question and go, what the heck does this question mean? Is invaluable. And I can tell you what, the knowledge and expertise that she brings to the field when it comes to the world of grants is phenomenal and amazing. So take a look at that one. Now, we have just a few more minutes left. Does anyone have any questions today? If you do, pop them into chat, pop them into the Facebook group post, and we'll have a look and we'll answer them and we'll see how we go. There's no questions? Really? Here we go. We do have one. I'm planning to apply for a grant in healthcare, but because we are new, it's hard to fund the outgoing cost. I'm not sure where to start. Where can we find the pricing for writing a grant? Tara, are you still there? I think Tara has frozen, guys. I'm just going to see that I'm still going on the Facebook end, and it hasn't been our Zoom situation that has completely frozen. I'll give Tara a few seconds and we'll see how we go. I know she had a bit of internet issues there today as well, so I will have a look and see how we're going. I'm definitely look like I'm there still. Okay, pricing for Tara's courses and those sorts of things are putting around on Tara's website. Tara does look like she's dropped out. Apologies for that, guys. It is what it is. Hopefully she can come back in. So if you go to the Whitney Consulting website, you'll find her pricing for being able to work one-on-one with her. You will also find the course price on the course link there, and I'm not going to quote them here just in case something changes when someone's watching a replay. But if you want to have a look at it from those areas, we're looking at it from there. Siobhan, you were looking for a grant in healthcare, but because we knew it's hard to fund the outgoing cost, so I'm gathering it's making the co-cost contribution for the grants. I would suggest having a look at Tara's website and maybe making some contact and touching base with her along the way there. That might be able to help you be able to do that. She does have lots of resources throughout that process. Jane missed out on what SAO stood for on the beginning, and I can't remember off the top of my head. If Tara was here, I get her to tell you, but unfortunately, I'm here by myself now. But we will have a replay available of this one, so you can go back and find out. It was definitely about, you know, delivering the standard operating procedures and those things along the way. Helen asked, is there any grants out there for business training and support? Look, I don't know on business training and support at the moment, but there is the grants business.gov website .gov. I'm pretty sure that's in grants. I'll go and grab it for you. Grants website. Now that's only going to give us the opportunity to look at business.grants to be able to have a look at the business.gov grants, which is only going to put out the grants and programs, but there is a finder out there, and definitely, guys, use it. So I'm just going to pop that into chat. I've just finally got it up on my screen. Situation. Okay, thank you, Ian, for writing that down. Jane, situation, action, and outcome. I knew that was going to be the case. Sorry, guys, I was dealing between chats and multiple sections today. And I'll put the grant list into the BBB group as well in the next little bit. But we did disappear. We lost Tara. Oh my gosh. Not great. Okay, let's see. I don't think she's going to be able to make it back. It could just be a connection issue. Okay, I'm just popping in the grants program list that we are there. But, you know, once again, sign up to Tara's newsletter. It's a great way for you to be able to get grants out there at the moment. Guys, I don't know, all honesty right now, being by myself, what grants are out there off the top of my head. It's not my area of expertise. It's definitely Tara's. So I'm going to leave it there with the grants one, but I'll pop some links in to hopefully help you find those things out from there. Our next skills webinar is with Kylie Martin, and Kylie's coming to join us on pricing strategy, and she's helping us understand our pricing strategy and how it works within our business. If you are looking forward to joining us for that one, I encourage you to get in and register now, because that one is filling up rather fast throughout the period as well. So I'm going to pop the link in for Kylie's one, and apart from that, thank you for joining us for this skills webinar. We apologise for the tech issue at the very, very end where Tara disappeared. The Lord of the Internet, it always makes it fun. But I look forward to seeing you back next time, or when we go on May 25th and we start talking to Kylie about pricing strategies for our business. I'll see you guys around. Bye.